Modern education is job related. Like they want a job prep or college prep, like career and college readiness is what you hear. Versus a classical education is about the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness.
Sometimes I feel the weight of the world fall down on me so heavy, and I need a friendly voice with some good theology. Calvinistically speaking, so I mix a manly drink, Pepsi and shoe polish, and I hit the YouTube link. Don't say hit, that sounds violent. And I feel my troubles all melt away. It's your Calvinist podcast with Keith Bosky. Beards and bow ties, laughs till sunrise. It's your Calvinist podcast with Keith Bosky. He's not like most Calvinists, he's nice.
And welcome back to Your Calvinist Podcast. My name is Keith Foskey, and I am your Calvinist. What is classical conversations? That's what we're going to be talking about on today's episode. And I have with me the CEO of Classical Conversations, Robert Bortins. Under his guidance, the company has grown from supporting homeschoolers in about 40 states to supporting homeschoolers in over 50 countries and has become the world's largest classical homeschooling organization. Robert is on the academic board of the Classic Learning Test, as well as Gutenberg College's Board of Advisors. He's also a member of the C12 Group, the largest professional development network of Christian CEOs and executives. Under Robert's leadership, Classical Conversations has been named a certified best Christian workplace by BCWI for 6 years, and he has recently launched his own podcast, Refining Rhetoric. Robert and his wife, April, live with their 3 young children in Southern Pines, North Carolina, and in his free time, Robert enjoys playing with his children and golf. Robert, thank you for joining me today on Your Calvinist Podcast.
Keith, thanks for having me. And every time anyone reads my bio, I just get exhausted.
I understand. I go through that too. When folks have me on the show, I'm like, man, that guy sounds great. It's like,
Yeah.
It's like, I wonder who wrote that. I did think it was funny at the end because it says you love playing with your children and golf. But the first time I saw it, I thought it said he loves playing golf with his children. And I was like, well, that's interesting. But how old are your kids? I guess I should ask that. What's the age range? Maybe a better question.
So I have a daughter who's 10, and I got 2 boys that are 8 and 5. So we're we're kind of in that sweet spot before you got teenage hormones and everyone can get up in the morning and make their own breakfast. So you don't have to get any kids dressed anymore, and the hormone adventure hasn't started quite yet.
I really believe as a father, and I have 6 kids. I have 2 adult kids, and then from 12 to 2, 4 that are in that age range. I really do believe that is that best spot. The kids, but they're out of diapers. They can sort of, like you said, get up on their own, kind of do their own thing, but yet at the same time, they're not at that point where they're wanting to be away from you. When they start becoming teenagers, that's the years where they're wanting to kind of be their own. I love I have a 9-year-old son, and he just wants to be with me all the time. He just wants to play with me. He wants to show me his toys, and at the same time get me to engage with him. And I know there's a time where that's going to kind of wane. I know there's a time when he's going to want to move away. And because I know for me, I love my father, and I had a great father growing up. But when I was a teenager, I wanted to be my own person, and kind of do my own thing. And I'm like, Lord, just keep it away for as long as you can. Yeah.
Yeah. So, someone said something, you never know when the last day is that they're going to ask you to pick them up, or the last day to play Legos or something. So not that you don't do it with your parents and stuff, but it's kind of hit me in the heartstrings,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Robert, I want to thank you for coming on today to talk about something that I'm going to admit I don't know much about. So I'm going to be the learner today. You're going to be the teacher, and I'm just going to be asking you a bunch of questions. And I even have some questions from our audience that I want to ask you as well. But I've heard a lot of discussion in the last 20 years about the subject of classical education. And our family has been a mix of homeschooling and private schooling. We have my wife was actually the president of a local homeschooling association when my kids were in high school. So we were very invested and connected to the local homeschooling community. And I'd heard people talk about classical style of education. And we even went to conferences where we heard people give seminars and stuff. But I'm still not sure I understand all that it means. So for just a few minutes, can you talk about what classical education is, what the distinction is between that and what we might say is a more modern version of education, and kind of what the differences are?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's taken us 29 years to figure it out, and we're not quite there yet. So I'll do what I can in a few minutes. But I think the big difference between like a classical education has two components of it. One is reading the great books, original source documents, and so that aspect of it that a lot of people think about. You know, you're going to read Plato's Republic and discuss it. You know, you're going to read Shakespeare. You know, you're going to learn like Latin or Greek, and it's looking through the lens of history. What are the best materials created by our best thinkers? You know, some of them pagans, some of them Christians, some of them, you know, we're not quite sure which way they ended up going. Uh, and trying to see what they thought and having a conversation around it and really thinking about it. And you do that with three general tools, which is called the trivium. And there's three stages of learning, which is the grammar stage. Then you got the dialectic or logic stage, and then the rhetorical stage. And so for us at Classical Conversations, we focus on those three stages of learning because we believe that's the process you go through to learn anything. And so for the grammar stage, why we used to have grammar schools in our country is kind of K through sixth grade. And that's when kids just love memorizing it and love learning things. And so we have them memorize things like Latin endings and a history timeline and geography. And so they don't know, so they don't have the wisdom yet to know what they're doing with it, but their minds are just absorbing these ideas. And so you're just trying to give them copious amounts of good information that are going to help create their worldview and virtue later in life. And then once they get up to kind of the sixth grade to ninth grade, 10th grade level is the dialectic stage. So their mind has formed more. They're able to start seeing connections. They've got a little bit more wisdom. You know, why is the, weather patterns in the southeast of, the United States affecting the salmon prices that are up in the, upper Northwest, Pacific Northwest, and starting to like get connections. And they have a lot of knowledge, and now they're putting these connections together. And then the final stage, which is going to be kind of that 10th through 12th grade year, is the rhetorical stage, where they're really focusing on public speaking and being able to express their ideas and think through ideas, studying formal logic. Our students will translate parts of the Bible and Iliad from Latin into English, and kind of wraps up with at least at Classical Conversations, a cruise for graduation that we have available for the students. And so that's kind of a classical model framework. And your typical kind of modern education that you see in your typical public school is they are just, in classical education, you might study 5 things, but you're going to go a mile deep. In a public school, they typically just have you go an inch deep and study a bunch of different things. So you know a very little about a lot, or taught a very little about a lot, versus classical education is really trying to get your brain in a spot where it can learn anything in the future. And so you're going to study a few things, but you study them very deeply. And so that's the two primary ideas is modern education surveys a bunch of subjects versus a classical education is going to dive deep into fewer ideas, but much deeper.
Hey, I'm Joe from Squirrely Joe's Coffee. Some partners just make sense, like 2 Christian companies committed to excellence, virtue, and strengthening families. We discovered something beautiful. The same families choosing classical Christian education for their children were also choosing our coffee for their homes. Both represent a commitment to excellence and biblical wisdom. When we found Classical Conversations, we realized we were serving the same heart. That's why we're excited to work alongside Classical Conversations families. Whether you're beginning your classical education journey or you're a seasoned veteran, we want to fuel those morning lesson plans and evening grading sessions. Through this collaboration, CC families receive a special discount to our premium fresh roasted coffee. sourced ethically and roasted with the same care you bring to your children's education. Use code CC25 at checkout for 25% off your purchase. This isn't just about coffee or curriculum. It's about building a community of Christian families raising the next generation with wisdom and virtue. Squirrely Joe's and Classical Conversations, where excellence meets virtue.
So I was reading a little bit about you prior to our show, and I didn't get the full story. So I was going to ask you, did your parents create Classic Conversations? Is that how it worked? Because I thought that's what I read, but I didn't want to assume. So I wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
understanding. Did you inherit the company? How did that work?
Yeah, so I was homeschooled the whole way through high school, and my mom and my dad, when I was entering high school, like a lot of parents, especially in the 90s, like, how am I going to get my kid into college? How's he going to, he needs to have peers. He needs to, can't do debate with just our own family. Like, we need to have a good, robust education. You need peers and a mentor to help guide you along. And so they actually looked at private schools in the area in North Carolina and couldn't really find one that had a classical education bent. And so my dad, he's very much an introvert, looked at my mom and said, well, I guess you're going to have some kids in our house. And so that was in 1997. So that was my freshman year, as myself and 10 other students in our basement. And it went so well, everybody wanted to do it a second year, and they had siblings that were younger. And so my mom handed, the 16 pages that were stapled together. That was the curriculum at the time. Gave it to another mom, and just from there, a few years later, I was off at college at Clemson University. There was 5 or 6 different groups going on and like a 300-person waiting list. And so that's when my dad quit his job, told me good luck in college, and my mom started really making Classical Conversations a real organization. And since then, I spent 6 years as an engineer after graduation, and in about 2012, I came over and started taking over the day-to-day operations of Classical Conversations.
Gotcha. That's what I read. I read the thing about the car. It was something about they wanted a car, and they said, well, we're not getting you a car or something.
Yeah. My mom called me and said, your dad's thinking about buying you a car, but instead he quit his job. And so you're never going to see another penny from us. Good luck paying for school. So I'd go to school semester, work a semester, go to school semester, work a semester. I mean, I rented closets to sleep in when I was at school because that's what I could afford for rent. And yeah, it was wild, but it was fun.
But you went through Clemson and graduated and all that and did good?
Yep. I did well enough.
I know this isn't the subject today, but just on that, my wife and I have been talking about the importance of hardship, going through times of hardship, right? The importance of not having everything given to you. Our kids, sometimes we feel like we want them to have a good life. We both of us come from difficult, family lives. My parents were divorced when I was very young. And so I grew up with, broken family. My wife was in a situation where her parents weren't believers. So she had a difficult family life. And so, we want our children to have a good life, but at the same time, we don't want it to be so good that they never learn how to overcome adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's a concern. I mean, I joke, I said, I want my kids to get bullied at least once just so they know how to deal with it. Right. So,
no, absolutely. I mean, they have college classes now for developing resiliency, and that was something that you just naturally developed as you grew up through childhood. So I don't know whether it's the insurance laws and the fact that kids can't go play outside by themselves anymore, or, people just don't feel safe doing that, or helicopter parents, but no, absolutely. I mean, it's trying to figure out, how to balance that. Cause I'm the oldest of 4 boys. And so I see my younger 2 siblings had a much different life. They're 12 and 15 years younger than I was. So they had a much different economical upbringing than I had. And so just seeing some of those differences there, some of the benefits and some of the downfalls. And I think with AI, the rise of AI, I mean, and you just saw the study, I think out of MIT, what it's doing to students' brains. I mean, it's just going to make that resiliency and hard work even more difficult. And, we always talk about, it's not the end result, it's the journey. But so much of society is trying to make it about the end result. And we can see that just the depravity of man is gets enhanced when we give up on how the journey is supposed to go.
Now, you're on a Calvinist show when you throwing out the word depravity. Sorry, had to
Try to speak to the audience. Got to speak to the audience.
That's right. That's right. Now you talking everybody's language, at least everybody who listens to me. But that's, So I want to ask you about this and maybe go a little bit into this, because classical conversations tends to be, these are homeschooling families, right? That's your audience, right? And so one of the things that we were talking about is there in the homeschooling community, is there a way to see this resilience built? Are there things that we're doing? And you mentioned the need for peers and mentors. I mentioned the need for bullies. Maybe mine was a little off. But why do you think it's so important that people have peers and mentors, not just being at home with mom and dad and the siblings?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the Bible is pretty clear that we're not supposed to be in isolation, and with a group of people comes wisdom, and the need to a servant becomes like his master, a learner becomes like its teacher. And so, and the Bible is also very clear that the parents have that ultimate responsibility. And so, as a parent, you're ultimately responsible, not the private school, not the public school, not the state or federal government, but you. And so you kind of look at how do you build systems? I'm an engineer. My parents are engineers. How do you build systems that can promote that sort of mentorship and peer groups? And so, like, homeschoolers create co-ops. They've done, obviously, there's the classical conversations communities. There's speech and debate clubs. And so there's all sorts of ways that homeschool parents have been able to intentionally pick their students' mentors. So if you think about like a typical public school, like, oh, I have kids, let me find a zip code with a good school district, right? But all you're doing is picking a zip code with a government rated, A+ school or whatever the rating is. You don't know anything about the teachers' worldviews, what their thoughts are on children, what their thoughts are on God. And so what homeschooling allows you to do is pick those mentors wisely as parents and pick that peer group, because God's pretty clear that evil corrupts good, not that good corrupts evil. So trying to match the systems that we develop in classical conversations with what we see aligns with the Word of God.
Yeah, and you meant you have a political side too. That was some of what I noticed about you, and you've mentioned a few things here about the government schools and things like that. I do want to, at some point, I want to touch on some of that. Maybe ask you your opinion on a few things. But what are your thoughts about people who say, you know what, I do think I need like a private school. I'm having trouble doing this on my own. Do you think classical conversations is sort of the middle road between somebody who's just doing the straight homeschool and someone who's doing private school? What are your thoughts on that? And am I maybe misrepresenting it by saying that?
I think from like a lay person view, that's a good, it's a mixture of classical conversations provides an in-person community. So you're getting that, what about socialization question answered, if you will. Right. And you've got a body of accountability, because it's not just mom saying, oh, take this week off, or, let's skip this project. You have a group that you've promised to meet with for 12 or 15 weeks. And you've promised to do this work so that you can come in and have a good conversations with your peer group. And so, and then at classical conversations, we have all sorts of training for parents to kind of fill in that gap. And so, like, as far as like private schools are concerned, just to be honest, like, we have a local ACCS school, and we are always going to their fundraisers and help supporting their fundraisers. So we're not necessarily against, I'm not going to say private schools could be very good, or they could just be modern, just like the public school. But I always say with better drugs, because they're richer people. But because I've seen both. But if a private school again, does not usurp the parents' responsibility and brings the parents in, then I think it can be a good partnership. I think you have to be very intentional and purposeful as a private school trying to do that, because the parents are more than happy to just drop off your kid and think because they're paying a bunch of money to go there that you're going to take over that responsibility. So ultimately, I think you have to go back to the Bible and say, it's the parents' responsibility to give your kids a great education. How do you do that? Well, you find good mentors, and you find a good group of peers. It's certainly possible to do that in the private school. I would just say that very few of them are probably doing it as well as the parents think they're doing it for the price tag that they're paying. But with the classical conversations or homeschooling, you can be, exceptionally intentional on who you pick to be in those groups.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I want to ask you a question from somebody in our audience. Now, this is not being recorded live, so this is not a live question, but I have questions that were submitted before I interviewed you, because I posted on X and on Facebook. I said I was going to be interviewing you today. And so I have several friends who just sent in questions, and something you just said sparked a memory of one of them. And this is from my friend Topher. He's somebody I know. I've met him in person. He said, is classical education is the classical education model for everyone? If so, why? And if not, why not? Do you think that this is the best model for everybody? And I know, obviously, I want to say just from the outset, this is your model. So, this is not an unbiased answer, but honestly, is this the best model, do you really think, for everybody?
Yeah, I think it is, because those 3 stages that we talked about of learning are inherent to anything that you go learn, even as an adult. And so it's much easier when you know the pathway to the top of the mountain and have gone up and down it before, to do it a second and third time. And so with a classical education, you're firing off, just the brain science, more neurological stems and waves, and your brain's working up and thinking much clearer because of the depth that you have gone in studies, versus a modern education that's going to survey a lot of information but not necessarily go very deep. And I mean, you can just look at the statistics of our reading levels. Only about a third of our students in our modern education system can read at grade level, and even those grade levels have been degraded over time. And you've got students who haven't struggled with anything, like you pointed out earlier, but our depression is at an all-time high, and you've got 30 students per classroom, but more people are lonely and suicidal than they've ever been before in history. So I think the Bible tells us to judge something by its fruits. And we can see the fruit of the modern education system is poison.
Gotcha. The thing that I was just thinking about whenever you were talking about that is, when we look at what you're promoting. You're promoting classical education. And in
Sure.
classical education, you mentioned Latin and Greek and things like that. What if someone were to say to you, Robert, listen, our students today don't need Latin and Greek. They need Spanish and Chinese, because that's the languages that matter in the world today. That's the language. I mean, obviously Latin and Greek are both dead languages. No one speaks them or writes them anymore for correspondence. We need students who can interact with students in Mandarin Chinese, or people who can speak to our South American neighbors and their in Spanish and Portuguese. What would you say to someone who said that you're just, what you're promoting isn't useful for today?
No, I mean, that's a great question. Something that we've heard over the last 29 years or so. And when we started Latin, there was about 10,000 people a year taking the national Latin exam. Now there's over 100,000 people. There's almost 500,000 people studying Latin in the U.S. There probably was about 10,000 of them 30 years ago. And so, homeschool parents have almost, resurrected a dead language because of our passionate pursuit of Christ. And so, the Bible, early writings of the Bible are in Latin and Greek. So those are important things that we might need to preserve in the future, especially if the dystopian future is coming. Obviously, with like tools of AI. I mean, you don't need to learn Latin or Spanish anymore. You just put in an earpiece and you talk to someone and it translates it to English and translates it back to them. And so Latin is the foundational language, it's a logical language of, the Romance languages. And it's also a way to teach people how to use AI and how to code in Java or JSON or whatever the latest codes are. They're all going to be based on language rules that you can learn by studying Latin. And so the most practical language in the world is to go study Latin, because if once you've got the skill set down to master that, that's going to help you, of course, in every single other subject that you learn. And if you want to go learn Spanish or Portuguese or Russian or Mandarin, it's going to make it that much easier once you know the rules of language and can apply that to a foreign term. So, I kind of reject that idea. And I mean, I think most listeners can think they spent 3 or 4 years learning Spanish in high school, and they probably, don't know too much nowadays based on the conversations I have with people. So I think we maybe overestimate, what they're learning in a modern education setting versus a classical setting that has a proof of millennia of working well.
Sure, sure. And as a Bible teacher, I always encourage people to study Greek. So that is that's something I can definitely give a thumbs up to. Is there much Greek in what you guys do, or is it mostly Latin?
Yeah, so we've decided to focus on Latin. We could have equally focused on Greek. So from like a classical perspective, either of them are good and accessible. We just decided to focus on Latin instead because it's a little bit more logic based, which is helpful. A little bit, we believe it's a little bit more helpful in studying other languages and other subjects.
Well, R.C. Sproul was my favorite teacher, as many people know. He's with the Lord now, but he was my favorite teacher, and he loved Latin. So I love it. I love to hear him say it.
Yeah.
I wish I knew more about it, but he was certainly a guy who appreciated the Latin language. Brandon Beckley on X asked this question. He said ask him about truth, beauty, and goodness. He can probably go long on that. So I was curious what that meant, because I think I'm out of the loop on that. I mean, I know what truth, beauty, and goodness are, I think, but that probably has something of meaning for you.
Yeah, with classical education, so you ask classical conversations versus modern education, and another way that is expressed is modern education is job related, like they want a job prep or college prep, like career and college readiness is what you hear, versus a classical education is about the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness. And if you think about, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will be added unto you. A modern education is focused on all these other things will be added unto you. And a classical education is trying to determine and help orient a student's soul and mind to the concepts of truth with a capital T, beauty and goodness in the world, so that they can serve their fellow man. Instead of just being a cog in the wheel of progress or economics or a Fortune 50 company's, quarterly earnings report.
So when you guys, when we talk about the subject of truth, beauty, and goodness, is classical conversations a biblical curriculum? Are you drawing those concepts from a biblical worldview?
Yeah, so our mission is to know God and to make him known. And so we believe that, all of creation sings and glorifies the Lord. And so what a better way to know about a creator than to studying his creation. And we believe that we have an orderly God. And so if we have an orderly God who created this world, we should have scientific laws. We should have mathematical laws, so we learn about those things, and those things prove that there is in fact, a creator who loves us. And so we don't have a separate Bible curriculum. We believe that if we want to not bifurcate our lives as adults, we can't do that with our education. And so learning geography is a way to glorify God. Learning math, learning Latin, and all of those things point back to the nature of God. And so the conversations happening in those peer groups inside the community with a mentor is going to be centered around how do we see the glory of God in these subject matters.
Awesome. I want to make mention to you and to the audience, if anybody's hearing noise right now, it's because a rainstorm just started. Of course, I'm here in Florida, and rainstorms can come at any time. So I don't know if you're hearing that on your end, Robert. There's a little bit of sound on my end, but my studio usually does a good job of blocking it out. But if anybody happens to hear, oh, I think it's stopping. That's just how quick it can come and go here in Northeast Florida. But that's great. I think obviously, as a Christian parent, we want our children to learn truth as it is expressed in Scripture, beauty as it is expressed in Scripture, and goodness as it reflects the character of God. So all those things are important and foundational. Now, before I get to some more questions from the audience, I want to explore just for a minute your some of your political side, because that's mentioned also with what Emma sent in as far as from your bio. It mentioned that you have been involved in politics from your youth, knocking on doors as a teenager for Republican candidates, and even wrote one of the first websites for the GOP North Carolina Senate candidate, Janine Metcalf. So tell me about your political involvement.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to know that Jesus is king and ruler over all the world, and we get to live in a country that's a republic, and it's a republic if we can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin said. And so I just think it's important that Christians are involved in picking our leaders and then holding them accountable. And no political party or individual is going to save Jesus Christ, but there's certainly principles in the Bible that work out really well for our country and our fellow countrymen. And so I've been involved since I was young, not so much in my 20s, but now I'm president of the Moore County Republican Men's Club. Help people fundraise and strategize, and trying to work with different conservative and Christian think tanks behind the scenes to advance laws in our country that help America bless God. And I think it's important. They say 50% of Christians don't vote, and so that's somewhere between 10 and 20 million voters, depending on how you want to categorize that. And it's really easy to say, who's the lesser of two evils? But if you're not getting involved, you might not be interested in politics, but politics is certainly interested in you, and it's generally interested in separating you and your pocketbook. So I think it's important for Christians to know that it's not going to save our country. Only revival will do that, but it's also important that we don't relinquish any realm of human flourishing and this life that we've been giving to someone else to rule over us.
Sure. Now, since 2020, obviously, we all know what happened then. There's been sort of a revitalization among certain Christian groups of things like Reconstructionism and theonomy and ideas like that. Is that something that you're involved with, or do you have? Is that an area that you're concerned about, not concerned about in your particular field?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really try to get into too many debates on some of those ideas. I mean, this is kind of my worldview, and you could probably tell me what debate or what grouping it falls into. I believe, I'm in my early 40s, so I got 40 or 60 years left in my life. I believe that, when people, I don't know if Jesus is going to come back, but I know I'm leaving in that time frame. I don't know if we win or lose down here, but as an athlete and as a competitor, I'm going to do everything I can to win. What does winning mean? It means being obedient to what the Lord has for us. It means walking on the narrow way. I believe we're called to raise up the next generation to follow him. And how are we going to do that if we're seceding all of our different infrastructure and colleges and the political realm to the pagans? So that's kind of the worldview that I'm gonna espouse, is trying to win now, trying to win while I'm here. Jesus is coming for me in the next 50 years, and I'm supposed to be faithful to the calling of going and making disciples of all the nations in between these two times.
Gotcha.
What am I?
Well,
What am I?
based on that, based on what you're saying, I would have to ask more questions to know if you were like a theonomist. But I think most of us would fall into the category of what's known as general equity theonomy, meaning that God's law is perfect, and therefore we should hope that influences the laws, and that the general principles of God's law would be those principles upon which we base all law, right? I think I'm being a little generic with the
Sure.
term general, but general equity is, again, it's a generic term, right? So I can be a little bit more generic, but there are guys who I really respect and love, like Jeff Durbin, who would be more of a theonomist, and then there are guys that would be less on that side, like R. Scott Clark, who would be, not so much. So I definitely know that there's a spectrum of guys, and I didn't know if that was something of an issue since you're in politics, if that was something that you've run into. Have you had to deal with people on different sides? Or you have people in your ear who are telling you, oh, you need to be going this direction, or need to not be going that direction. You need to be associated with this person, or leave that person, because that seems to be the whole online atmosphere right now. Is nobody, if you even have this guy on your show, you're now in trouble. Or if you
Canceled.
talk to this, yes, the cancel culture. Christians invented cancel culture, man. We were the guys who were standing out in front of the movie theaters back before the internet. It was Christians who were standing out picketing the movie theaters for showing a movie with, a sex scene or something, which you shouldn't be doing. But I'm just saying, we were the cancel culture, man. That was us.
Well, I think Duante or something. I can't remember his last name. He's a film producer, or he said, all my friends are heretics. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much true.
Yeah.
So, no, I try not to get involved in all the back and forth. So I guess part of being in classical conversations, since we serve Christians of all sorts of denominations and worldviews and views of end times and stuff like that, we try to point back to the Bible and the truth, and we don't necessarily get down in the nitty gritty of specific theological questions, at least from a corporate standpoint.
Yeah, you guys you're not making eschatology the centerpiece of your of classical conversation or any of that. Yeah, I get it. All right, so I'm going to get to some more of the audience questions, and you did say it was okay to ask you a few of the harder questions, because we talked beforehand. Because we've had a few. I'm going to ask you the hardest one from my perspective. I don't remember who wrote this one in, but when I saw it, I was like, I got to ask him this because I want to know. It says that R.C. Sproul's book, The Consequences of Ideas, has been removed from the curriculum. How dare you, sir? How dare you? And explain yourself.
Well, we love R.C. Sproul's and his materials, and you can only have so many materials. So unfortunately, I'm not the best person to answer this question, because we have a team of about 40 veteran homeschool moms who help under my mom's leadership pick our curriculum out. And so I'd have to go back there and ask them, but I'm sure they had a reason.
Well, you tell your mom to give me a call.
Okay.
No, I honestly, it's one of my favorite books. So when somebody sent in that question, they actually asked why Sproul's Consequences of Ideas and C.S. Lewis has been removed. And I just thought that was well,
we still have
question.
Lewis. And then Sproul's, I think it was one of our supporting books, but I have to go back. I'd have to ask. I'm sure there was a good reason. But we love Lewis and we love Sproul's. We just can't fit every book that we love in our curriculum. We already have the kids reading too much books, people tell us.
Well, good. All right. Here's a great question from my friend Dave Waring. He said, what would be good ways to begin with the classical model in the toddler years to prepare them for foundations? Is it ever too soon to start?
Yeah. So Foundations, for those listening, that's the name of our K-6 curriculum. And so preparing for Foundations, there's not really too much to do other than maybe teaching your kid to walk, working on the alphabet, beginning to go down a reading journey with them. But the Foundations program is designed to work with the mind of a young student. We do have songs associated with our memory work. So if you were to want to get a jump on those and maybe playing them as part of their bedtime routine, or when you're in the car, playing some of those history songs and geography songs and timeline songs that we have, that would be something that you could do. But as a parent, I'll just tell you, you're going to listen to a lot of those over a 6-year period, so you might regret starting that a year earlier.
Gotcha. Yeah, I understand that. There's only so many times I can hear tractor, but that's a whole other, that's seeds. No, that's not seeds. We listen to Seeds Family Worship and Slugs and Bugs. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys. They're really fun. Yeah. All right. So another question that came in. This is from I think I'm saying it right, Coyote Sword on X. He said, ask him why they don't teach rhetoric when it's essential to a Christian liberal arts education and they already do multiple years of logic, which is meant to culminate in rhetoric. Now, I thought you said earlier that you do teach rhetoric, so maybe I misunderstood, or maybe he misunderstood.
Yeah, so I think he's probably saying that we don't have a specific rhetorical track as far as like a textbook. And that's because we're doing hands-on leadership through the rhetoric skills. And so we start teaching rhetoric with our 4-year-olds in our foundations program when they start and stand up and give their weekly presentation. We do things like mock trial. We do things like debate. They in their junior year, they have to lead one seminar each semester, I believe, and then their senior year they lead one seminar each week. And so it goes back to that, if you don't see the Bible, you won't see the Bible in our curriculum. It's because it's everywhere. You won't see rhetoric specifically in our curriculum because it's everywhere. It's inherent to the community aspect and how the community day is set up.
This next question is actually kind of blends between politics and schooling, and this is something obviously you're having to deal with probably on a daily basis. Just the questions revolving around things like scholarships and stuff like that. So the question is from my friend Mark Lilly. He said, ask him to explain how Christian families should view bills and amendments. I'm so sorry if the sound is so loud. Do you hear it now?
Yeah.
It's really loud. I apologize. Wow, Florida does not want me to interview you today. All right, so let me see if I can get this going again. Okay. He said, ask him to explain how Christian families should view bills and amendments that redirect a portion of state funding from public schools towards homeschooling resources or private education. And he went on to say that they had an amendment to vote here in Kentucky last November, and you had come to speak on the topic.
Yeah, so what he's referring to is, well, I'll put it the nice way, the school choice movement, where it's not that you have the options to send your kids to private school or homeschool or public school, but that the government is going to pay for that. And it was just kind of interesting reading Genesis 14 at church this weekend when Abraham went and rescued Lot, and he came back, and the king of Sodom came out to him and said, and Abraham gave him 1/10 of everything, and the king of Sodom said to Abraham, give me the persons, but take the goods for yourselves. But Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to the Lord, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abraham rich. I'll take nothing but what the young men have eaten and the share of the men that went with me. And so basically, we believe the Bible is very clear. There's 3 realms of responsibility. There's a civil government, a church government, and a family government. And so when each of those governments are in charge of the things that God has designed for them, that things work out best. And so, it's libertarian leaning. Taxations are theft. Theft is, against, one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not steal. And so we believe that the government redistributing wealth to homeschoolers or to private schools is inherently not Christian, and that we should pay our own bills, just as I think Paul demonstrated in Acts that he did not take anything, but he worked because we didn't want to be a burden to you, that with the shekels come the shackles, and that our King has cattle on 1,000 hills, and will take care of us, but we have not because we ask not. And so getting the civil government involved in education has been a tremendous mistake in our country, and increasing that institution over private schools and homeschoolers will be devastating to our future freedom.
Okay, so you're not for any type of tax benefit or anything.
So I mean, there's a realm of things. So people say, like, are there nuances? Yes, there's things that are better, and there's things that aren't so bad, and there's things that are really bad. So people say, well, I just want to keep my own money. I'm like, okay, I can understand that. That wouldn't be so bad. But there's not been a single school choice bill that allows you to do that. Every single one of them has redistributed wealth from your neighbors to yourself. And so just look at the state of Texas right now has this problem where there's these Islamic cities that are coming up. Well, they're going to be having Islamic private schools paid for by tax dollar redistribution from Christian families to the Islamic families. And so, I think, the Bible is really clear that money is important, and who pays for something is important, and who you rely on is important. And so you cannot worship both God and money. And school choice is a way to try to get people to worship money instead of God, and we should keep ourselves as far away from that idea as possible.
Okay. One of the other questions that came up that goes right along with this. Okay, I get what you're saying. So why is classical conversation so expensive? That was a question that was asked by someone. I mean, because I do think that you guys are in a price point that is sometimes outside of people's ability. So let's talk about that for a second.
Well, it's always funny because it depends on, there's always something value, right? And expectations are always super important. So a lot of times I talk to people and I tell them what our price is, and they're like, per month? I was like, no, per year. And their jaw drops because we are so inexpensive. But obviously, if you got 9 kids, taking your kids to McDonald's can be very expensive. And so it's really a value proposition. And in situations like that, we haven't clearly defined our values in that individual's mind. But I mean, we save parents, hundreds of hours a year on curriculum choices. So that's, unless you value your time at like 50 cents an hour, right there, you're paying yourself back just by streamlining your life. For K through 4. So just to make sure people are clear, K through 3rd grade is roughly $600 per year. 4th through 6th grade is roughly $1,200 per year. And 7th through 12th grade is roughly $1,800 per year per student. And then there's like facility fees that are sometimes on top of that, but that's not something that we control. That's just based on where your group is meeting. So, we find that for classical conversations, it might cost $20,000 over 12 years to get your kid through it. Well, that's less than 1 year of private school almost everywhere in the world. So when people say it's expensive, it's, you could go to the library for free and pick up your curriculum, and you wouldn't necessarily have a lot of dollars being outlaid, but you would have a lot of time and energy. And so that's why I say, like, when you realize how much time and confidence classical conversations gives you, I mean, we really should be charging $600 a month, not $600 for the whole year.
Well, the person who asked that last question about the cost was a lady named Kristen on Facebook, and she also asked, where does the money go? So that was a good answer, I think. Well, I mean, I think you partially answered that just now. And she was asking because she said she has 4 kids in the program, so for her it is a little harder. Yeah.
No, so I mean, I don't want to sound callous, right? I mean, it costs money, and it is real money. Some ways that we do to help people offset it is we have tutoring opportunities, and you can lead your own community. We also have opportunities to become a local leader if that's something that you want to do to earn an income. But yeah, it is financial sacrifice, but every decision we make as a human is a sacrifice. You know, if I go get ice cream at the movie theater, well, that means I can't go get popcorn at the bowling alley, right? And so there's you're always trading off time and energy and trying to figure out the best way to do that. And we think classical conversations, and obviously she does too, thinks it's a tremendous value. We also have partnered with like HSLDA, which they have scholarships for people who are in financial, having financial troubles that they can go apply for scholarship to attend classical conversations or even use different homeschool curriculums through that HSLDA grant. We have a Give, Send, Go. We have a partnership with them that offers some scholarships to help families in particularly financial situations. So, where there's a will, there was a way, and sacrifice is something that's important. And when we sacrifice for our kids' education, it goes a long way.
All right, I'm going to do one more audience question, and then we're gonna draw everything to a close with a quick little rapid fire questions from me. I have a couple things I want to ask you before we end. We call this sanctified shenanigans, so that'll be fun. Okay. But one more question from the audience, and that is from my friend Becca, who she said CC often cites statistics about their students' performance on standardized tests such as the SAT, the ACT, and the CLT, etc. And their students are known to rank higher than average on those tests. How do CC students perform when compared against students attending brick and mortar classical schools? Have you ever done that, and do you know what the difference would be, or have you even looked into that?
So for brick and mortar classical schools, we have not done that yet, but we are discussing whether we should pay for that assessment. So that lady who wants to know where the money goes through, you got to pay for PhDs to do research for you. And then we have compared it to private school, like high-priced private schools, like the college prep private schools, and we are above those. So it's not. We've compared ourselves to public schools, obviously way higher than that, but we've also compared ourselves to just a generic private school, which would encompass kind of the ACCS schools, but not be exclusive to those. And we outperform those students as well. But again, those are like human ideals. Those things speak to dads more than they speak to moms. We want students to become adults who love the Lord, love their family. Those are really the things that we care about. But unfortunately, we have to also speak a little bit to what the world cares about, so people can make a good decision. But I mean, we're full support of all those classical brick and mortar. Like, I know bunch of their headmasters and leaders and talk to them all the time. And we're so grateful that they're on this journey with us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for answering all those questions. I know that was a lot of stuff from a lot of different areas, but this last few minutes is going to be what I hope everybody sticks around for, because I love shenanigans and I love to have a good time and I love to have fun. And so I want to end our conversation together today by just asking you some fun questions. These are sort of a get to know you a little bit better for people who are very interested in you and in classical conversations and who you are. And I don't know if you can tell behind me, but in my studio, I have fake movie posters. These are movie posters that are based on real movies, but I made them Christian. Like, instead of the Terminator, I have the Reformator. Instead of Jurassic Park, I have Noah's Ark. So these are my, this is my thing. And I'm really into pop culture. You are almost as old as me. Not quite. You said you started high school in 97, right?
Yeah.
So I started in 94. So I'm just a little bit ahead of you.
Okay.
But that is the golden age of film. I mean, that's right after Jurassic Park and all these great movies came out in the 90s. But you grew up in a homeschooling family. Did you guys have a pop culture, like were you allowed to go to the movies and stuff like that?
What's that like? Yeah, we snuck out behind my parents' back to go to movies.
Okay.
No, we were pretty loose for a homeschool family back then. So,
okay, what is the greatest movie ever made from Robert Bortins' position on the greatest movie ever made?
It's the greatest movie ever made. I mean, it's gotta be It's a Wonderful Life. I know that's way before my time, but it's just it's got redemption in it. It's got drama. It's got all sorts of good things, and it's something that you can watch with your family. But I don't, there's so many ways to measure greatness. Like that one has just stood the test of time. So that's my classical.
Okay, what's the best '90s movie? I'll limit
Oh
it.
man, best.
What's your
90s
favorite movie as a teenager in the '90s?
Nothing good.
Oh, it's just you and me. Nobody's watching. There's only a couple thousand people. They won't mind.
Okay. The very first Jurassic Park with just the advancement in CGI. You had Star Wars, and you didn't really, the originals, and you didn't really have any sort of cinematic step up until you had Jurassic Park, and just the scene when the blonde scientist turns her head and you see the dinosaurs for the first time, and you have the same expression as she had on her face. So, and I was allowed to watch. That was probably one of the first. Is that PG-13? One of the first PG-13 movies we were allowed to watch.
Probably because it had people died and stuff. Yeah. All right.
That might have been the first one we saw in theaters.
All right. So moving away from movies, useless talents. Robert Bortins, what is the useless talent that you possess that you're most proud of? Something that you feel like you're really super happy you can do, but it doesn't really mean anything.
Oh man, I don't know what any useless talents I have that are. I coach rugby, so that might be useless in the kingdom. I don't know.
Well, I wonder if we're going to play sports in the kingdom. I mean, we're going to have glorified bodies.
I think we will.
I think
we will.
Rugby's pretty tough, though. You must be a pretty tough dude. Must be pretty solid under that pink polo you're wearing.
Yeah, people don't mess with me.
All right. Yeah. All right. What's one book outside of the Bible that changed your worldview?
They changed my worldview?
Well, maybe let me just say that a different way. Changed how you think about the world. Changing your worldview is a bigger step, but just changed how you look at the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I read so many business books now. If you had asked me my favorite business book, that might have been easier. Man, I think, basically reading the Tolkien books growing up, I think really, that idea of self-sacrifice and doing something beyond what you think, and being obedient to a calling, higher than yourself is a great book that all young men should read.
Awesome.
But don't go watch the movies. Read the book.
Read the book. Okay. Yep. Last but not least, and then I'm gonna let you go. If you found out, and this is totally fictional, silly, shenanigans. Okay, aliens exist. Okay, and they're going to come to the Earth. You get to pick one representative of the human race to speak to the aliens on our behalf. Has to be living, has to be today. Somebody who's alive today to represent humanity, to speak to the aliens. Who are you going to pick? James White said Elon Musk, but that was 4 years ago. So I would just like to say that's one of the answers that I've had to this question.
Oh man, well, I think from a political standpoint, you would probably hope someone like a Ron Paul type person would do it. He's not really in there. I mean, maybe like someone like Thomas Massey. I mean, if you want to start, an intergalactic war, we could bring in Doug Wilson to have that first contact.
You like Doug? You know him? Okay.
Yeah, I know Doug. You do a good Doug. I said, you do a good Doug.
I didn't know if you knew I was the Harbor Freight Doug Wilson. I didn't know if you knew that. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I know that.
Actually, on my shelf right there, you can't see it in the film, but on my shelf is my Fight Laugh Feast badge that has his name on it. I wore it around the whole time I was there, and I got pictures taken with him. His wife saw it and laughed so hard, so it was funny. It was very cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what's our goal? Elon Musk is a good answer, too. He probably wants... what about that? Speaking of pop culture, right? That guy with the 274 IQ that just came out that said he believes in Christianity. I mean, I don't know if he's like a red herring or someone who's just trying to gaslight all of his Christians on X, but he's saying good things. I would have him.
He's one of my top podcast guests. Like you just started a podcast, so you probably have like a list of like guys you'd love to interview. He's a close top of my list. I just want to ask, like what you just asked, is this real? Do you really believe these things? Are you a real, like, genuine Christian, and you're the smartest guy in the world? That's awesome. I have a lot of friends who say I'm on the opposite end. I'm the dumbest person in the world, and I still believe Jesus. That's okay.
Yeah. Luckily, you don't have to have a high intellect to believe in Jesus. But I think, you know what did the one philosopher say? Like, at the beginning of science, there's atheism, and at the bottom of science, there's only Christianity, or something to that.
Yeah, was it when you drink from the
effect.
glass of the natural sciences, you begin as an atheist, but when you reach the bottom of the glass, you'll come back as a Christian or something. It was, yeah, I remember that. You remember the comedian Mike Warnke from back in the 80s? He was a Christian comedian.
No, that was before my time.
He said, I'm glad. He said, the Bible says we're supposed to have the mind of Christ, and I'm glad I have his mind. I don't have mine because mine is dumb.
Well, people often ask me, what do you want to do with your life, or what do you want to do next, or something like that? And I'm always like, honestly, like, I'm the chief of sinners, and what I really want to do is do whatever God wants me to do. And actually, I don't know. I really want to do what God wants me to do. I just want to have a want to do that.
That's right.
And I think that's about as close as we can get here on earth.
Amen. Amen. Well, Robert, I really enjoyed talking with you. I hope you enjoyed being on the show today, and I hope people will learn more about classical conversations from this talk. And so I want to give you the last word. If there's anything you want to say, point people to a resource, point people to how to get in touch with you or to their local classic conversation. So take it away, my friend.
Yeah, you can go to classicalconversations.com, put in your zip code, and we'd be happy to have a local homeschooling parent, probably a mom in your area, come talk to you about homeschooling, classical education, or even classical conversations. Right now, during the summer, we have free one-day parent kind of boot camps. We call them parent practicums. They're free. You don't have to be in classical conversations, but you can go to parentpracticum.com to find out more information. And I'd love for you to follow me on X at The Robert B. Show. And connect with me there, and you can hear all my personal musings, about what's going on in the world and education.
Awesome. Well, Robert, thanks again for being on the show. And I want to thank all of you who have been with us for the last hour watching Conversations with a Calvinist. And I want to remind you, one of the best ways you can support this show is simply by going down and hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this particular episode, leave us a comment, tell us what you liked, ask any questions you have. I'd be happy to get back with you. And if you enjoyed this episode specifically, hit the thumbs up button. And if you didn't, hit the thumbs down button twice. All right, guys, thank you for listening to Your Calvinist Podcast. My name is Keith Foskey, and I've been your Calvinist. May God bless you.
Sometimes I feel the weight of the world fall down on me, and I need a friendly voice with some good theology. So I mix a manly drink, then I hit the YouTube link, and I feel my troubles all melt away. Oh, it's Your Calvinist Podcast with Keith Foskey. Beards and bow ties, laughs till sunrise. It's Your Calvinist Podcast with Keith Foskey. He's not like most Calvinists, he's nice.
Your Calvinist Podcast with Keith Foskey, striving for superior theology and denominational unity, one joke at a time.